Cheers everyone, Cloudfather here. Well, to come back to look at things we looked at yesterday, we've been adding layered coats of Rust-Oleum 2X glass clear on cork. And we're actually starting to see flattening now, which is good. It looks like it takes a fair amount. You pretty much have to saturate it, let it dry, repeat the cycle on a daily basis for 3 or 4 days. I haven't put them between steel plates yet. I'll do that later today. And then we'll see if that flattens them out so they're like they were in the original packaging. Now we have some new materials to try. I haven't worked with leatherwork for a long time, so I thought it'd be fun to get a couple of grab bags. Leather, unfortunately, has gotten real expensive, so you have to look at multiple unusual sources, and one of the other sources to look at is places like Goodwill or thrift shops. So we're going to play with that a little bit. We also got some chamois, which came from Hobby Lobby, but in the future I'll buy it from an auto parts store because they sell considerably more for about 1/3 the price. So we'll look at that. This is a piece of glass that we've treated with black tempera. We'll go do some work on that probably later today and try several different image types and several power settings. And this was done again with the high volume, low pressure spray detail gun. And I'm finding that by letting this dry a full 24 hours as opposed to using it when it appears to be dry, which is about 15 minutes, because it's a mix. I mix this tempera with isoalcohol to help it dry faster. I find by letting it dry overnight, it somewhat hardens the paint. And so the harder the paint, it seems the more clear any type of engraving or patterning that we put on the glass is. So again, we're going to continue to experiment with that. This piece, which is part of the titanium dioxide test yesterday, we're going to clean that off, recover it, and then we're going to go through, take this piece and this piece, and we'll go through and do a real fine spray with the paint gun to make it look like the black tempera here. And that way we have a very well-defined and real flat surface to work on. And we're going to rerun the same test we did yesterday to see the difference between brushing on titanium dioxide and layering it with a spray paint gun set up to utilize it. All right, we have the wind tunnel set up here. We've now taken some milk glass, which is this white cast acrylic, to put the leather on. This will help eliminate the honeycomb marks. As we start this, we're going to do this at very low power, and we'll start with a center speed of 6,000. The goal is to see at what point do we start seeing changes in the leather, and that'll allow us to move up and down between different power and speeds to see what's happening. We use autofocus, but as you can see the materials, the leather, I haven't pressed, I'm taking it straight out of the package. When I do something like this in production, I will have put it between steel plates for a couple days to make sure that the materials are level. Because if we look at how far some of the edges are up, they're actually almost 8 millimeters. So that's going to affect the focus. But at this point, we just want to check text, line drawings, and some fairly simple grayscale. Okay, we have a little change in direction this morning. I just got the notice that Lightburn release candidate 5 is out, so we're going to spend a few minutes loading that up. Release candidate 4 worked fairly well, but it had lots of problems with dropping communication of the laser, particularly if you left it on overnight. It had issues where The main process lost communication with the spawn process, which is what's actually moving the laser head around. So those are some things you need to look at. Generally, the rest of it was pretty bug-free except for the move page. None of the arrows worked. You couldn't move the gantry around, so you had to use a little icon and then place it where you wanted the system to run from. But otherwise, you know, the folks at Lightburn are being responsive. They're definitely making progress. I've found them to be a really good vendor to work with because they do listen quite carefully to their customer feedback, and they usually do follow-ups to make sure that if something was a problem, they usually circle back with you and take a look at, you know, what's it going to take to finish this and get it on the right track. So these people are doing a great job of their beta testing, and we thank them for that because that's quite important. So there's release candidate 5, and we're just going to install it right over the top of release candidate 4. And again, if you want stability, always stick with the current release. If you like a little drama, it's always fun to try the new ones. You'll learn a lot from that. But again, it depends on your situation. If you're experimenting, that's pretty cool. You learn stuff. But if you're trying to run a business, best to have 2 laptops. Have one with production on it and one with your as your beta laptop or system. So the installation process is running the way it usually does. And it's just about done. I'm not interested in, I'll install all the components. Changelog I'll check into later. Finishing up the usual clicks to ensure everything gets installed. And as far as installation go and deinstallation, Lightburn does something I really appreciate. Their installs work as good as their uninstalls do. And that's really important because poorly designed software leaves lots of garbage on your system. The other nice thing is this one auto executes right into where you were previously running 4, so we can now see we're at RC5. And it immediately communicated with the laser. You can see in the console here. This is what was missing in RC4. So it's now showing the correct release of GRBL, sending back some of its status information. It's got the correct buffer size and correctly homed. Again, release 4 didn't do that. The move console, let's see what it does. So interesting, the move console, I'm pressing the buttons and it's still not changing anything. Though it is blinking the laser on, which is kind of odd. I wouldn't have expected that. In fact, the fire command, no, that's working. Ah, that's something odd. I don't know whether it's still initializing. Now, if I go and grab the little teardrop icon, what I'm going to do is just see if I can position it. Okay, that's working. So now I'm positioned over the workpiece, and can I move it? Well, the first thing, oh, distance millimeter is 0. Let's set it to 10 and see what happens. Okay, that's working. So the problem is their initialization. The distance, millimeters, which is right here in the move page, was set at 0. That's not a good default. It should be at least 1 so you get some movement. So that's the reason why it probably didn't work in 4 either. So I think we're at this point in good shape. Our most important control, which is the fire control, which is what I use to actually see really where the laser is working, so we're good there. Let's do the get position. I'm going to do a home. And it's successfully doing that. There it goes. It says it's happy. Now if we go back to the move menu, you have move from machine 0 or you have move relative. So you have to be careful using that to make sure that your axes have been properly calibrated. In other words, your limit sensors are working properly. So the interesting question is it's now not picking up where the Z is. So I'm going to move it back. This time I'll use the arrows. And so we're going to move it up. We're going to move it up so it's in the middle of the work surface. Let's go update the overlay and then we can see it. Bear in mind, this is my side view camera. So we got to move up here a little bit. Okay, so now we're at a point where we can actually see if the Z-axis is working. And again, this is just a little quick test I like to do to see how things are functioning. Now, I cleaned the laser yesterday and was very involved because of the very dirty work I've been doing the previous 3 days. So everything's all ready to go. The autofocus has all been adjusted, the filters changed, everything cleaned and lubricated. So the ESP500 command is working. And let's see what the console thinks. Okay, successfully completed. So at this point, we've actually focused the laser over the materials. Now let's go grab something to play with. So I saved up some of the beta test work. I'm going to load in beta 2 here. And we'll see our familiar little corners. And the bottom of this is at 51, and the bottom is 200. So 51 on the side, 200 on the bottom. And I have loosely spaced the materials so that, let's see where the edge is here. Yeah, it's at 74.9. So it's going to move over a few. I think we'll take all of this. Oh, good, the all select is working too. Oh, okay, that's what happened. I should have grabbed the tool line. Okay, so it is right where I want it. So we're going to go ahead and select all this. With our happy green little box, we're going to go to cuts and layers. And we're going to run the same test we did, but this time we're going to start at very low power. The reason for that is I have no idea how leather's going to react. So I'm going to start at 2.5, leaving all the other parameters together. I'm going to go to 300 dots per inch because the black is for the text. I'm going to do shapes individually. So that's that particular setting. I'm now going to, and I'm using fill also, I'm now going to do the same thing with the elk and the mountains, which is a vector drawing or SVG file, 300 dots per inch, leaving all the other things together. We're going to switch to individually. We're going to turn the output of both those layers on. Then we're going to go to our image setting. We're going to go 250 to, I think I'll go 7.5 because even in 35 watt mode, which is where we are now, it may burn things. I'm in grayscale mode. I'm just going to use 200 dpi as a starting point. We'll tinker with that a little bit when we get the chance. But that's what we're going to do our first run. I'm not even going to bother trying to line up the materials because they haven't been flattened yet. But this will give us enough quick look at what the behavior is at the lowest power settings, and then we'll be going up or down depending on what kind of result we get. So we're going to go ahead, we'll frame that real quick just to make sure we're in the right place, because this is a new release and I want to make sure that it's doing something useful. So I'm going to move down some of my materials so they're a little closer together. That way we'll catch more different type materials in the same pass. And again, I'm running a mix of materials and doing different things on 3 of them. Later on, we'll go to the other materials and see how those work as well. So we're all framed up. We've done our focus and we're starting. And of course, we get the same 2 shapes were set to fill but weren't closed. So we're going to lose the body of the elk, but we'll see the antlers, which is pretty funny actually. And so the runtime of this, oddly enough, is 2 hours and 5 minutes. So I'm going to watch this for a little while. I'll come back in 2 hours and 5 minutes and we'll see what kind of result we had with leather. One of the first things I'm looking for is, do we get any flaming or burning? Because we always do the safety check first. And later on in the process here, I'm actually going to do a burn test where I'll put a steel plate underneath the material and I'll determine at what point do we get charring versus open flames that the cross flow of the air can't put out. Because that's an important upper limit boundary in terms of the material tests we're doing. And again, I'm starting all these tests today at the lowest power in 35 watt mode, which also has the narrowest beam. So I'll be looking at how clean are the edges of things, how clean are the fill areas. What does uneven surface height do with this type of material in the laser? So we'll check back with you in a couple hours. Okay, cheers everyone. Cloudfather is back. I'm really quite pleased with the result. I did do a little tweaking to try to find some center areas to work. In the text, we were using fill mode, and I ran it a few times, wasn't getting much results. Then I went and brought it up to 7.5, and that's what you're seeing here. This gives nice clean image. There's no charring. I did the SVG that we've been doing earlier in the week with the fill on. One of the things I'm noticing is I need to make some tie downs to keep the leather flat, because as it heats up it curls. But we actually got pretty clean images. I think the optimal range is between 5 and 7.5, probably about 6 or so. And it's a very, very narrow band at between 200 and 300 speed. Now the other thing we did is we did a 0.25 to a 7.5 at 96 dpi, and we actually got a pretty nice grayscale image. I was quite pleased with it. It's going to take a little more tinkering, and this particular leather is also a lot rougher, so it has a lot more surface variation. But it is showing that a 70 watt diode laser put in a 35 watt mode with the narrow beam, run at very low power and low speeds, can actually do a pretty nice job of working with leather. And again, I haven't worked with this in over 50 years. So this is promising. We're going to have to do some more playing. One of the things I'm also going to test is I'm going to see how linear the relationship is between speed and power. So I'm going to run some additional passes with the same 3 test patterns and look at, if I set it up at 24,000 speed, how high do I have to set the power to get the same quality image, if I even can. My guess is somewhere in the middle there'll be a sweet spot between power and speed. The other thing I could also try is bringing the Z up to 20 instead of 15, which is at the autofocus level, and see where focus point makes a difference across speed and power. So those are some of the experiments we'll do later in the week. So just a quick look at our test pattern. You can see we've got the Dragon, we've got our text, and we've got our SVG file. Let me run over to cuts and layers here. And we can see that we're using fill for the text and for the line drawing. And then image we're using grayscale. Let's go look at the property sheets real quick. So for the text we use 300, maximum power of 15, so that's the highest power we use. We got 300 lines per inch. And that gave us a very acceptable text. It didn't overburn it. It's nice, large, and sharp edges. So I was happy with that. Then we did the SVG file, and here's its property sheet. So we're at 300 DPI. We're running max power at 250, which is very low power. We still got an image, and we had the speed at 250. So that's another good combination. So very low power actually will result in a pretty good image. In fact, it might even still be a little hot, in which case we want to increase the speed. So now we'll look at the image. Again, we're running RC5. We just loaded that earlier this morning. And so for the graphic image, we're in grayscale. We have no changes to dot width. We're in 200 DPI for time's sake. We're running a minimum of 250 and a max of 750. And that actually will require us a little bit of tinkering, either direction and speed, minimum power. But it kind of represents the center. And again, we're running at very low speed, very low power. And we're running narrow beam rather than wide beam, so we're in 35 watt mode. And the goal here was to figure out how fine a detail we can get down to. The next series of experiments over the next day or so will be increasing the speed and doing from the opposite direction of maximum speed and the least amount of power to get the same quality image if that's possible, or determine where the most practical midpoint is between 24,000 and 200. So that's what we'll explore next time. Cloudfather out.